The land that would one day be called North America was a vast wilderness, a place of endless plains, forests, and rivers that carried life through the valleys. 4 million years before the first cities, before even the first spoken words, life here was raw and untamed. The forests stretched across the rolling hills, thick with towering pines, ancient oaks, and groves of fruiting trees that drew in animals of all shapes and sizes. Herds of small horses thundered across the open meadows, while mammoths and giant sloths wandered slowly, grazing on vegetation. Predators ruled these lands with unmatched ferocity. Saber-toothed cats prowled silently, dire wolves hunted in packs, and enormous birds of prey circled above, watching for the weak or the young. In this unforgiving world lived a small family of early hominids, ancestors of humankind, who had no language beyond cries and gestures but shared something far stronger, a bond forged by survival and blood. The family was made up of 7. The leader was a broad-shouldered male, scarred from many encounters with beasts far stronger than himself. He was the protector, not by choice but by necessity, driven by an instinct to keep the group safe. His mate, smaller but equally vital, carried the weight of watchfulness, her sharp eyes scanning for danger while guiding the younger ones. 3 children followed closely wherever she went, their curious hands always reaching for food, stones, or sticks. The youngest still clung to her side, while the older 2 often ventured just far enough to explore, yet close enough to run back at the first sign of trouble. 2 other adults, perhaps siblings of the leader, remained with them, each contributing in their own way, one skilled at finding edible plants and the other quick to react in moments of danger. Every day for them was a journey between hunger and survival. There was no certainty of food, no comfort of shelter beyond what nature provided. The morning began with movement, for lingering too long in one place meant attracting predators. They traveled slowly along the river's edge, searching for roots and fruits, cracking open nuts with stones, and stripping bark from trees to find insects hidden underneath. The children imitated every movement. A young boy tried to crack a nut with a rock but failed, the shell unbroken. The older male knelt beside him, striking the stone with more force, splitting the nut open and sharing the soft flesh inside. Learning was survival, and every mistake carried the risk of hunger or worse. The forests were alive with sounds, chattering birds, rustling leaves, the distant calls of grazing animals. Yet underneath those sounds was always the silence of danger, the awareness that predators were never far away. As the family moved, they left signs of themselves behind, footprints in the mud, cracked shells, stripped branches. Such traces, though unintentional, were signals that could draw hunters to them. That knowledge was not spoken, but it lived within them as instinct, passed through generations of survival. They kept close to the river, for water meant life, but the river also drew others. Crocodiles slid silently beneath the surface, and at night, the calls of predators echoed across the valley. By midday, the family had found a patch of berry bushes. The mother guided the children carefully, pushing away branches heavy with fruit and plucking the ripest ones. Her mate stood guard, holding a long branch stripped of bark, sharpened crudely at the tip. It was not a weapon that could kill a predator outright, but it was enough to wound, enough to create hesitation in the attack of a hungry beast. Every sound in the undergrowth made him turn, his eyes narrowing, his body tense. The children's laughter like cries broke the silence as they stuffed berries into their mouths, juice staining their faces. For a moment, there was peace, a brief gift in a world where peace rarely lasted. That peace was shattered when a flock of birds suddenly exploded upward from the trees. The male froze, his muscles tightening. He knew the signs. Danger was near. The family dropped the berries and gathered close, the older female ushering the children behind a fallen log. From the tall grass on the far side of the clearing, the golden eyes of a predator shone. A saber-toothed cat, massive and silent, emerged from the shadows, its fangs glinting in the light. It was lean from hunger, its ribs showing through its coat, and its gaze fixed on the smallest of the children who clung tightly to his mother's leg. The air grew still. The predator's tail flicked, its body low to the ground. The leader stepped forward, raising his sharpened stick, his voice erupting in a deep growl, a sound not of words but of raw defiance. The children whimpered, pressing into their mother's side. The older male moved to flank the leader, picking up a heavy stone. Together they stood, not as individuals but as a wall between their family and death. The saber tooth hissed, its throat rumbling, circling slowly. Every step it took pressed the family back, closer to the trees. The mother dragged the children into the shadows, whispering in guttural sounds that urged them to climb high, away from the beast's reach. The standoff stretched like a rope pulled to breaking. The predator lunged once, testing their defense, but the leader thrust his spear forward, grazing its muzzle. Blood welled at the shallow cut, and the cat snarled, stepping back. Its eyes burned with fury, but it hesitated, sensing the resolve of the two males. For long moments, they stared at one another, predator and prey locked in a contest not just of strength but of will. Finally, with a sudden bound, the cat turned and vanished into the tall grass, its growl fading into silence. The family remained frozen, breaths shallow, until the forest's normal sounds returned, the cries of birds, the hum of insects. Slowly, the leader lowered his weapon, his arms trembling from the tension. He looked back at the family. The children clung to their mother, wide-eyed but alive. His mate's gaze met his, filled not with words but with gratitude, relief, and exhaustion. They had survived another trial, but they knew too well that survival was never permanent. As night approached, the family searched for safety. They found a grove of trees, one with a hollow trunk large enough to shelter the smallest. The adults climbed into the lower branches, keeping the children in the center. The male sat at the edge, watching the fading light, listening to the sounds of the night as predators stirred once more. His body ached, his wounds stung, but his heart beat steady. Tomorrow would bring more dangers, more hunger, but tonight his family was alive. The stars spread across the sky in brilliance, unbroken by city lights, unchallenged by the hand of man. The hominids did not understand the stars, did not give them names, but they felt their presence, the cold beauty of the sky above and the endless wilderness below. The family huddled close for warmth, drifting into uneasy sleep. And though they could not know it, their survival this night was a step on a journey that would shape the destiny of countless generations to come. They were not yet human, not yet masters of their world, but in their unity, in their instinct to protect and endure, lay the foundation of humanity itself. The night had passed slowly, filled with restless sleep, every rustle of leaves or distant cry of an animal shaking the family awake. Dawn came at last, and, with it, a pale light that spread across the forest, painting the trees gold. The leader of the family stirred first, his body stiff from the cold. He scanned the forest carefully before climbing down from the tree to test the ground. There were tracks in the mud where small deer-like animals had crossed in the night, and farther off, the faint impression of large paws pressed deep into the soil. The saber-toothed cat had passed through again, hunting under cover of darkness. For now, it was gone, but the tracks reminded him that danger was never far. The family descended slowly, the mother carrying the youngest on her hip while the older children clung to branches until their feet touched the earth. Hunger gnawed at all of them. Yesterday's berries had filled their stomachs for a short while, but the need for food returned quickly, and now the ache in their bellies drove them forward. The older female moved to the riverbank, digging at the roots of reeds with a sharpened stick. She pulled up what she could, biting into the fibrous stalks and passing pieces to the children. The taste was bitter, but it kept them moving. The leader searched for something better. He watched the forest with sharp eyes, scanning for signs of fruit or animals. High in the trees, a group of ancient birds flapped noisily, squabbling over something. He followed their cries and soon found a tree heavy with figs, its branches thick with dark, sweet fruit. He climbed quickly, pulling the fruit down and dropping them for the others. The children squealed with excitement, gathering the figs into their hands, their faces sticky with juice. For a short while, the family ate until their stomachs eased, but as always, the joy of food was shadowed by risk. The smell of ripe fruit and the noise of feeding drew attention. It came first as a rustle, then as heavy steps. From the opposite side of the grove, two dire wolves appeared, their eyes fixed on the family. Larger and stronger than any wolf that would exist millions of years later, these predators hunted in packs, and though only two had come, their presence was enough to freeze the group in fear. The leader gripped his stick tightly, positioning himself between the wolves and his family. The older male grabbed a heavy stone, his chest rising and falling rapidly as he prepared to defend. The wolves circled, snapping their jaws, trying to drive the family away from the tree and claim the fruit for themselves. The family backed toward the river, the mother pushing the children into the shallow water, where reeds could hide them. The wolves lunged forward, snapping their teeth inches from the leader's legs. He swung his stick, striking one across the nose. The animal yelped but did not retreat. The second wolf darted low, trying to circle behind him. The older male hurled his stone with all his strength, striking the wolf's shoulder and knocking it sideways. The predator snarled in rage, its eyes burning with hunger, but the strike had bought precious moments. The leader roared with a guttural cry, lifting his stick high and slamming it against the ground, the sound echoing through the forest. The wolves paused, ears flicking back. They were powerful, but they were also cautious hunters, unwilling to risk serious injury. Slowly, with growls and snapping teeth, they began to retreat into the trees. Even as they disappeared, their howls filled the air, carrying far into the valley. The family knew the danger was not over, the wolves would return, and likely with others. The family moved quickly, leaving the grove behind and traveling deeper into the forest. They followed the river upstream where rocks jutted from the water, creating small pools. The children splashed at the edges, startling fish that darted in. The shallows. The older female crouched low, her hands plunging into the water, trying to grab one. The leader joined her, trapping a fish between two rocks and seizing it with his hands. He bit into it raw, the taste strong and strange, then offered pieces to the others. It was not much, but it was enough to strengthen them. Hours passed as the family traveled. They crossed open meadows where herds of grazing horses stamped the earth, their heads rising nervously at the scent of predators. Giant sloths moved slowly at the edge of the forest, tearing at branches with powerful claws. The children pointed and cried out with curiosity, their voices echoing, but their mother hushed them quickly. Noise meant attention, and attention meant danger. By late afternoon, the heat pressed heavily on them, and the family searched for shade. They found shelter beneath a stand of tall trees where fallen branches lay scattered. Here, the leader paused, gathering stones and breaking them against one another. Shards flew off, some sharp enough to cut. He picked one up carefully, turning it in his hand. Such tools were crude, but they could split open bones for marrow or strip bark more easily. He showed the others, and the older male copied him, striking rocks until he too held a sharp edge. The children watched, their eyes wide, mimicking the motions with smaller stones. The day was ending, but as the sky turned red with the setting sun, danger returned once more. The distant trumpeting of mammoths shook the air, followed by a chorus of cries from birds fleeing the trees. The ground trembled as something moved through the forest, something larger than any predator. The family climbed quickly into the lower branches, holding the children close. Through the fading light, they saw them, a herd of mammoths, their tusks massive, their bodies towering above the trees. The herd moved slowly but with unstoppable force, pushing down branches and shaking the earth. The family clung to the trees, silent and still, as the giant creatures passed beneath them. They were not hunters, but their size alone could kill. When the herd had gone, the forest grew quiet again, but night was approaching fast. The leader chose a place high in the trees, where the branches formed a cradle. The family climbed up, arranging themselves close together. The youngest whimpered softly, soothed by his mother's embrace. The older children fought sleep, their eyes heavy, while the adults remained alert, listening to the forest. Far off, a wolf's howl echoed once more, followed by the deeper roar of a saber-toothed cat. The family pressed closer, their bodies trembling. The leader gripped his sharpened stick tightly even as exhaustion pulled at his muscles. He knew that every night was a battle of waiting, a test of who could endure the darkness and live to see the morning light. As the stars lit the sky once more, the family drifted into uneasy rest, each breath a fragile promise of life. They could not know what tomorrow would bring, only that it would demand everything they had, their strength, their courage, and their unity. In their fight to survive, they carried the spark of something greater, something that would one day rise from the wilderness and shape the world. But for now, they were only a family in the forest, huddled together in the ancient struggle for survival.